You should also have the react button at the top there. So you should be able to react, and what I generally do is I get people to use thumbs up for yes and shocked face for no. It works quite well when we're doing a few different things. So if I do say yes or no or things by that nature, please feel free to use the react button. So yes, welcome along to Computing Science Week 2025. We are technically into week 2 since we had some events running last week, but this is the official week that things are going on. We've had sessions, live lessons, we've had partner provider sessions, but this is one that we are doing that I wanted to do because it's quite a key thing just now, especially with the fact that we have as teachers, if you're using Glow, you have Google Gemini through your Google tenancy, and even if you're in an independent Google local authority, you should still have access to Gemini. So vibe coding is something that is only available right now, or Gemini in general, I should say, is only available to teachers. Okay, so learners do not have access to Google Gemini. That is just something that has not been enabled as yet. It's something that might change in the future, but right now, the only people who have availability of Google Gemini are the teachers. So when I say vibe coding, it's bringing, hello, Miss Love, welcome. You haven't missed much, just introductions. When we talk about vibe coding, I essentially think of it as a quick way to do lesson resourcing, to create resources or materials that you're quickly wanting to share. Or even if there is a resource that hasn't been enabled, that hasn't been developed, but you can do it based on an idea. For introduction, my name is Martin Coutts. I am an education officer with the digital learning and teaching team at Education Scotland. In a past life, I was a secondary maths teacher with a bit of computing science and also a primary digital skills teacher. And one of the things that I have learned over the past several months as we have been using AI, generative AI, to good effect, is that it is definitely here to stay. And one of the things that we are looking at are the ways in which that we can enable effective and responsible use of AI, not just using it to generate text or generate images, but to actually bring an idea to life. And that is essentially what vibe coding is. So either using the chat or putting your hands up or however you're feeling. Let me just see if I can change something a wee second. One of the things that I think is probably a good idea to get a range of exactly where you are is how many of you have actually heard of the term vibe coding. So if you, hello, Mr. Mazier, welcome. So yeah, thumbs up. Some people are saying they've heard of it. If you haven't, use the shock face. If it's, but if you have heard of it, that's great. If you've done something with it, okay, so some people haven't. That's okay. That's great, Linda. Not a problem at all. And the same with yourself, Ms. Love. You haven't heard of it. Perfect. That means we've got the gambit that we can go through here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to have a look at what vibe coding is. It's basically just a buzz term that you'll quickly come to see. I'm going to create a couple of live demos using Google Gemini just to show you some of the things that you can do. I'm going to give you a wee task, right? So if you've got a machine in front of you and you're logged into Glow and you've got Gemini open in front of you, that's great. Don't worry, there will be plenty of time. We'll talk about the human aspect, because obviously one of the things about generative AI is that it is only as good as the individual who is prompting it. In the same way that, and Alison, you'll probably resonate with this a little bit. The amount of times as a maths teacher, I got hands up from a pupil in the class who then turned around and said, calculator's given me the wrong answer. No, it didn't. The calculator gave you the right answer. You asked it the wrong question. Okay. Yes, it will sometimes get an error, but it's generally down to the way in which we as the users are prompting. It is the same with generative AI. And when I say generative AI, I mean things like ChatGPT, Meta AI, Grok, which I don't think any of us would have used. That's the X, Twitter, Elon Musk one. Google Gemini, which I'm sure we've seen, certainly with it being a tile that you log into with Glow. Generative AI will only be as good as what we ask it and whether we tell it it is right or wrong. If it hallucinates, if it gives us the wrong answer, then it's our responsibility to say what you've done here is wrong. And as you go through and you start to create resources through vibe coding, you will notice that you will need to tweak, right? That is one of the key things to take away from today, is that what you ask has to be tweaked. You need to tweak, because if you don't tweak it, it won't go the way that you want it to. And anybody that's built something or created something, even if you've maybe painted a picture or you've built something with Lego, or you've maybe not followed the instructions and you've started to go with a feeling, that's essentially what you're going to be doing with Gemini. So vibe coding, or sorry, one of the things to talk about is the ethical stuff around this. One of the things I have to put in. As I mentioned at the start, Google Gemini and Glow is for staff only, okay? All AI generated content, double check it before you share it with pupils, just to make sure that what you're sharing is accurate. One of the things that we say that not to do is to put any sensitive information into Glow whatsoever. Glow is a learning and teaching platform. It's the same with Google Gemini. Anything that you have within there, no pupil data, nothing like that whatsoever. That goes for any generative AI tool. And as always, please just double check the things that you get as an output. Don't take it as gospel that what is being produced through generative AI is going to be 100% accurate. Check to see whether it's got a bit of bias around it and whether it's suitable for your learners. And that's one of the key themes here, is making sure about suitability and making sure that it's accurate. So that's where that human in the loop aspect comes into it. The one good thing about Gemini within Glow is that it's not used to train external models. You might have seen all of this chat. You might see like news articles or things coming up about people suing Meta and going to Google and saying they want their work removed from the training data, or the training data has been used without permission. The thing about Gemini within Glow is nothing you enter into it is used to train the model. So you get the benefits of the trained model without using any of your data to train it. We're essentially working in a sandbox, but the sandbox can still get sand poured into it, but we can't chuck any sand out. That's the best way to think of it. We will get the improvements, but none of our data will be used to help generate those improvements. So that's quite a comforting thing, is that any generative AI that is used for education with an education account is very much within a walled garden. So I'd said at the start there about vibe coding, and vibe is a feeling, right? It's you get it's quite a going to show my age, but it's quite a young person vernacular to say that someone is a vibe, or that they are a that person is a vibe. My daughter says that quite a lot. Oh, such a vibe, and it's like, well, okay, what does that mean? And it's essentially they've got a je ne sais quoi. They've got, the French call it I don't know what, to again show my age and put in an Austin Powers quote. But we don't, a vibe is just a feeling, right? And that's what a vibe code is creating something based on a feeling. It's an idea that you bring to life. It's something that is a starting point. I want to teach maths, but I want to learn about it as if the fractions was about dragons, or I want to learn about space, but I want to make it creepy. So again, the prompt becomes the vibe that we turn into the activity. And that's what we're going to be doing, is creating a lesson activity based on an idea, which is what we do. But we have that issue where creating a resource, creating a PowerPoint, creating a document, creating any resource that we have to use with our learners can sometimes take time. And we sometimes go out there and we scroll through the internet to find a particular resource that fits our needs, but it doesn't fully fit our needs, so we change it a little bit. we kind of do this unplugged to a degree, when vibe coding is a way that we can do it based on what we need when we need it and how we can bring it together. So the vibe coding as a concept is about bringing a unique idea to life and how we can start to build upon it. So when we go into Gemini and we think about this, and as we start to look at it, we are starting with an idea, right? And all good lessons begin with an idea. Yes, we have lesson plans, but we don't always have a resource that we are looking for. So I can talk about what vibe coding is, but to be honest, the best way to actually go through this is to show you it in action. Okay, it's really the best way to kind of approach this. So just at this stage, if you have been okay with everything I've said so far, please use the React tool and the thumbs up. If there's any questions or anything you'd like to clarify, please put that into the chat. But if everything I'm saying sounds okay so far, I'll move on to the next bit. Thank you so much. Try to make this as interactive as possible, but because I'm recording, I've got your mics and your cameras off so that you don't feel that you're being put on the spot, and again, not recording you without your permission and so on. The little reactions are a good way to do that. So let me come out of my presentation. On the Glow Launchpad, if you are using Glow, you might be in an individual tenancy with Google. I'm going to be doing this being a Education Scotland representative. I'm going to talk about this via Glow. One of the tiles is obviously Google Gemini. If you can't see it within Launchpads, you can obviously just search for it. Then once you find it, you can tap the I at the top, and then you can add it to your Launchpad. Another way that you can get to it is just nice and easy, just going to gemini.google.com, and if you're already signed into Glow and you have a Google account, that will work. Now, if you've used Gemini before, this screen will be familiar to you. Let me just put this to full screen. So if you've used this before, this will be familiar to you. Don't worry if it's not. This is essentially just a prompt window, and if you've used any kind of chat tool whatsoever, this is where I would type in my prompt and I would get something out where I could ask it, what was the exact time Titanic sank? Okay, just a simple prompt. We are beginning to find, and the industry in general is beginning to find, that generative AI tools, chatbots like this, are beginning to supplant Google searches. It's beginning to become a bit more accurate for finding bits of information, and it will just take you through. It gives you the sources. It's quite good as a research tool in that regard. But the tool I'm going to use today is still within Gemini, and under Tools I use Canvas. That's how we create something. That's how we come up with an idea. So I'm going to go into Canvas, and if you'll forgive me, I'm very much a Blue Peter presenter. I like to go with one I have prepared earlier, just so you don't get amused by how absolute rubbish my typing speeds are. I only have one working hand, which doesn't make it easy. Let me just go with my prompt. Okay. Let's close that window. And on Gemini. So my idea here is I am teaching prime numbers to my class. So I'm acting as a primary teacher in this regard. Apologies, Alison. I know secondary maths teachers, we have to stick together, but I've still got my maths hat on. But what I'm thinking about here is my class have been struggling with prime numbers, and I would really quite like it if I could create a game that would allow them to, see what prime numbers are. Or help them understand a bit better what prime numbers are. So I can't find any good activities out there, so I'm going to create my own. And my prompt here, I'm using Canvas, and my prompt here is I'm going to create an 8-bit game where a character must shoot falling objects. We want the game to have a maths and numeracy theme to it, keeping with the experiences and outcomes in Scotland. The game should have the character shoot prime numbers as they are falling, keeping track of the score. They have 3 lives, losing 1 life for each rock they shoot incorrectly. Okay, so that's a straightforward prompt. In the same way that I always used to tell my pupils, be as thorough as possible. You guys are now my pupils, and whenever you're doing anything that involves prompt, a good prompt is as detailed as possible. Even down to, you know, if you're creating an image, saying, give it a grainy Kodak camera feel to it, and you'll be amazed how much that changes the overall output that you get. This is a good step to kind of think about creating a resource or maybe something that is unique, that's a good activity that you share with your learners. So let's start this. And what Gemini will now do is it will go into this environment that makes it look like it's writing the HTML code. Okay, so it's just going to write it all in the background there. And because it knows I'm an egomaniac, it gives me a nice little ego boost at the start that says, that sounds like a fantastic way to engage with numeracy. Thank you, I thought so too. But you can see what it's doing here is it's actually building the app, but then there's also this preview button that exists. So it's given me this window here that says, right, welcome to prime target, shoot the prime numbers only, hit a composite or miss a prime and you lose a life. 3 lives, score high. Let's start the game and see what we get. So, all right, there's a couple of things that I can see wrong with this. So it's not perfect right now, right? I'm not entirely happy with how it's looking. So I'm just going to come out of this and say, right, let's add in. So you can probably see that there's a couple of issues there, right? Hello, Susan. Nice of you to join us. Susan is my colleague on the Glow team who also does a lot of work with Google Gemini. I'm just going to allow her camera and her mic because I know she won't have a problem with coming on should we need to. So you can see how easily it builds an app, right? So using the chat, what's a couple of things that you noticed is wrong with it right away? Or does everybody think it's perfect? I need the numbers bigger. Okay, Miss Lemazier, perfect. Numbers bigger. Okay, so that's one thing we can take away. Make the following changes. The numbers on the rocks should be bigger, and the game window should allow the character to be visible at the bottom. The other thing, it doesn't actually tell me what to do. Okay, so include instructions for using the keyboard to control. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, Linda. I totally agree. You couldn't see the character at the bottom. That was the one thing that was jumping out at me. And then obviously, Miss Mézier has that individual feel with the numbers needing to be bigger. I need to see the character bigger at the bottom. I need instructions for moving the character, to control the character, and how to shoot. And this is where it will again give you a little bit going, fantastic spot, well done, you spotted that right away. There is a bit of humanification to it, where it does try to make you feel like you are actually talking to a real person. Just remember, you're talking to you're basically talking to the front end of stuff that is happening in the background. Now what it's doing is it's making those changes. You can see the swirling icon at the top, and then it will give you the instructions. Okay, so welcome to prime target, welcome defender, blah, 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 hit a composite or miss a prime. There's my control button now. Space or WK, AD, and moving left or right. 3, and I still can't see a character. It's there, but it's appearing to be a little bit off, right? So I'm not too pleased at that. So let's see if we can make this change. Make the gaming window landscape and 4:3 resolution. Because right now it's appearing like it's a phone game, and that doesn't always appear well on a window like this. So I've just said to make it a 4:3, which is kind of like a Microsoft PowerPoint slide, the original kind of size that we had. And there we go, it's fed my ego a little bit, saying that's a great change for a different feel. So make the game wider and shorter, right? So that should work quite well. Game now, and you can see, right, there we go. So there's my character now, and I could say, right, let's see, what else have we got? Okay, so there's a slight bit here that's also, what do we think now? Is there any other change that we would make? Obviously, we've got the numbers being a bit bigger, but in terms of ease of use, is there anything else you would change? What do we think? So from a differentiation point of view, there we go. Make the cannon move. Okay. Right, so that's a good spot. I would like the rocks to be the same color. I would also add sound effects and make the rocks blast apart when shot. Losing a life should, yeah, absolutely, a reaction. Yeah, if you're getting something right, that's a good one as well. Losing a life should also occur when a rock hits the character, and make the character movements in smaller increments. Let's see what that does. Okay, so like the rocks to be the same color. I'm adding in some sound effects, and I can go through. So you see what we're saying here about a feeling and how we're kind of tweaking something. The main, I've made some fantastic upgrades. It really does massage your ego, doesn't it? But what we're doing here is we're kind of building a tool that could be used with our learners without necessarily it having to take too long, right? We have a play, we play about with it, but it's been 13 minutes and I've made 3, 4, 5 different changes. Now you can imagine even the best coder in the world wouldn't take 13 minutes to build something like this. Creating a presentation or a Word document, if you create something in 13 minutes, it's generally not going to be to the same level as this. So let's see what we've got now. So they're all the same color. So let's try, see what we've got. Let's shoot. Okay.
Buzz. Chime.
Okay. So the sound effects.
Game over.
Sound effects aren't exactly the best. If I show you one that I'd made earlier, that's kind of similar, just went through the exact same approach. In fact, it's not saved it for some reason. It does this sometimes. But there we go. Prime number shooting game. So if I show you this one, you can see I went through and I said about the score bar. I adjusted a few different things to it. But you can see as I go through and I shoot prime numbers, it is very sort of 8-bit to the wrong one. So there's how we could start to build. Now, sharing this with your learners is where there's a couple of steps that are involved. I'll show you that towards the end of it, but essentially when you share it, when you tap the share button here, you're not actually sharing the content, because you're still needing to find a space to host it, like a Google site or somewhere that takes HTML. But the HTML code you can start to embed quite easily. Now that's obviously one that I've created in a very, very specific manner, but I might want to create something that's just a bit more straightforward. So let's start a new chat. And if you remember, when I go to tools and I go to canvas, I would say create a resource that displays a sine wave and allows the frequency, amplitude, and modulation to be changed using sliders. Okay. Now this was a specific request that I'd had when I did this CLPL with teachers on Western Isles, and there was a science teacher who said I was trying to build. We had this old resource and I can't find it anywhere. If you get any ideas, I said, well, why don't you build it? But I've not got the skill for that. And I took him through this one simple sentence: create a resource that builds a sine wave. In fact, we could even change it and say a sound wave, but let's just go with sine wave, and allows the frequency, amplitude, and modulation to be changed using sliders. You change it to Google Canvas, as I said, you tap submit, and it will go through and it will build everything that you need. Now, again, this is where the human aspect comes in, where we are still wanting to see that the things that we are creating are accurate, not just creating something and then sharing it with learners and going bish bash bosh, job done. So you can see as I scroll up, I have my sliders for amplitude, so I could adjust and you notice it even gives me an explanation at the bottom. So there's my amplitude, making it smaller, frequency, make that higher, and modulation, that's the distortion that we can have to the complexity. All right, so we can start to build this in. Right, now you see how easy that was. That took 1 minute to build, and we have a resource where I can even change the name of it at the top and say waveform synthesizer. Don't know if I like that, but it's taking the concept, it's taking the idea and tweaking with it. That's what a vibe really is, and it's building a resource, it's building a website, it's building a tool. So before we even go to export, I'd like you to take the next 10 minutes or so and just come up with, just have a go. So reminder, before you enter your prompt, when you go to new chat, so when you're in Gemini, which you'll get through your Glow Launchpad or going to gemini.google.com and then signing in with your Glow Google account, change your tools to Canvas or your LA Glow account, change your tool to Canvas, and then type in your prompt. If you're wanting an idea for one, you could create a recipe sharing app. You could maybe recreate the wave, the amplitude waveform changer. You could even vibe code one that is about, where have I got it? Design a fraction game. Okay, that is aimed at. So I might change it to design a Scottish level 2 fraction game using a theme of dragons sharing treasure. Let's see what we get when we do that. So 10 minutes, have a wee go. Right, remember, change your tools to canvas, type a prompt. If you're not happy with stuff, change it as you're going through. Susan, anything you want to add, ask, share? Feel free to come off mute if you need to.
No, Martin, that's got loads of potential and it's much easier than I initially thought because I wasn't really sure what vibe coding was about. So yeah, loads of potential there. So thanks.
No problems. Anything, anybody else? Any other questions, queries? Have a go. Let's give it 10 minutes. We'll come back just at, in fact, why didn't I do that? Tools, canvas, create a timer. Look at this, just typing in create a timer app, does everything that I need to in the background. And then it should go to preview. Perfect. Let's make that 10 minutes. Start. So feel free to add any questions or queries or anything that you need clarified or double checked into the chat. Have a go, have a play, make sure your tools are on canvas, and that will allow you to kind of build this app that you want to use. And then I'll show you a couple of ideas for sharing it out. No problem, Susan. See you on Friday. So what are some of the ideas that folk are coming up with? Are you coming up with anything, or are we just having a play with Gemini? Okay, how did that go, Linda? Is it giving it giving it a kind of a um, giving it a kind of aspect like that is really good. I think again, it's not just yeah. That's what I was going to say. It won't always be perfect right away. And yes, the only reason that I make it look like it doesn't take too long is because I do this on a daily basis. But hopefully, you're all beginning to see that the idea is the key to it, and kind of having that approach where you think about what is it I'm trying to build, how could I do this, what would this look like if I was involving pupils. If I was involving pupils, I might do the same thing with that I did with you, asking questions as I'm building it. How does this look? What could I change? What would be good here? As we start to build resources together. The key thing though, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes, is how you then take your is then you how you take your idea and you share it out with learners. What local authority are you in, Miss Love? Okay, so if you have um just to check, you have Google through your Glow tenancy, is that right? So you should have, if you've got Google Drive and Google Classroom and things of that nature. Okay. Um, so it should, if you do a search in the tiles and you do a search for Gemini, if it's not there, it means you don't have a Moses there. Okay. So can you launch them? So if I was to search for it and you were to tap on that or to click on that, does it launch it or does it just show you that it's available? So if you go back into your Glow Launchpad and you type in Gemini and then tap on it, does that open up into Gemini? No option to launch. Okay. So for the purposes of this, you may have to use a personal Google account if you have one. If not, then please just listen to the concepts because it's not unique to Google Gemini. I'm just using Gemini in this regard, but most okay. So it might that's an East Ayrshire issue, I'm afraid. So we'll just be coming back in a wee second, just to we've got about a minute and a bit just to go, and I'll bring you all back just to have a wee finish up, and then we'll be stopping. Right. So hopefully you had a chance to, and again, apologies if you're in a local authority, it doesn't have Gemini enabled within Globe, but this will work if you do this on a personal device as well. You can go to ChatGPT or Google Gemini. The good thing about vibe coding is it's not unique to one platform. It can be used in any of these platforms. So you can see I've got quite a nice straightforward countdown timer there, but what I want to do is I want to share my Space Invaders game that I created with my learners. And not that one, because that wasn't a great one. Let's go with this one. So that was my Prime Blaster game. Now, sharing this with pupils doesn't work when I tap share. That's just not the approach that it takes. So if I go to the code, essentially what I'm wanting to do here is I want to take all of this code and embed it onto a site. Now, this is a couple of steps ahead, so don't worry about getting this right away, okay? Because if you've not done these next parts, there is going to be a bit of a level. I just want to show you how you can do this. So if I just click and drag and select all of my text, in fact, an easy way I can do this is just to do Command A or Control A and then Control C. So that code is now on my clipboard. Now, if you've done anything with WordPress where you maybe built a class blog, or you've done something with Google Sites where you maybe also created a website, just something that you can share with learners, this is how easy it is to share that work with them. So I'm just going to go to Google Sites for this one. And you can see I've already got a few other examples that I've created. So there is going to be a recording of this that you can go back and look at. So all I did was selected all of my text, right, which I just did by doing Control A and then Control C. Now I've went to Google Sites, which is available to anybody that's got a Google tenancy. It's also available to anybody that has a Google account. This also works with WordPress. You just have to be able to go to that embed option. So if I go to a blank site, you can see here I've got a blank page. And what I want to do is I want to take this element here, the one that says embed. If I tap embed, it will say embed code. If I tap on that and then do Control V, there's all of the code that I copied. Then tap next, tap insert. That's now on a page that I can share with learners. So I could take out and just say Mr. Coots's awesome Prime game. Could add a logo if I want. But it's there that my learners can now use this. So I can make this bigger. It appears on this page. I'm happy with that. I could go to settings, I don't need anything, but I'm just going to publish. Mr. Coots awesome Prime game, great. Who can view my site? Let's just change it with Education Scotland to public. I'm going to tap done. Request public not to display my site, tap publish. Now, if this has worked, I should be able to take my link. I should be able to put it into the chat. And let me check that that has actually worked. Copy link. And then if you guys want to tap on this and tell me if this works, just using the thumbs up or down emoji. Thumbs up for it worked, shock face for no. Tell me if you can play my awesome Prime Blaster game. Hey, it's worked. Good. So that's a very kind of makeshift way to show how I could quickly build a resource using just a feeling, using just an idea, shove it into Google Gemini, and then the steps for sharing it are a bit more involved. But again, once you get into the rhythm of doing this, once you start to do it, it becomes really easy. Like even just down to a bit of fun. Some of us, I'm sure, are old enough to remember this, where I could even take the DVD logo and I could have it bouncing on the page. Just a bit of fun. If you've used Microsoft Whiteboard or Google Whiteboard or Google Jamboard, sorry, that's now dead. I created just a digital blackboard, and I have a pen size that I can change. I've got brushes, I've got emojis, just things that I can have a play with and I can put things into. So it all starts with the idea. It all starts with what you're thinking about and how you take things forward. But the key part to this is to remember that the AI is only a part of this. We are still the teacher. We are still the fountain of knowledge that we need to be for our learners. So when we are creating something, we need to make sure, just like any resource that we create, whether it is accurate, whether it's able to be used, that's the exact same as if we went and downloaded a resource of the TES site, or whether we have used what's the Twinkle, the other tool that's there. But the other thing to think about is that last line. Your expertise when using generative AI will get better the more you use it. The more you start to approach different things, the different approaches you take, the different thoughts that you take, that's how these things get better. My skill at using generative AI has only improved because I have found a purpose for it in my day-to-day productivity, whether that is showing you guys how to create resources, whether that's actually helping myself build or create a resource that I need to share. That's the key aspect of this, is knowing what I want to use it for, what is it I need to build, how do I take things together. So with that, just at 4:50, right, just a 45-minute, 50-minute lesson. Didn't want to take up too much of your time this evening because I know I may stay in the northeast of Scotland, but a phrase that we used to use in the west coast is the nights are fair drawing in. And right now in Inverurie, I can't even see out because it's so dark. So I don't want to keep you any longer. If there's any questions, anything that you want to ask, anything you want to clarify, please feel free to put in the chat. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time this evening. Thank you for taking part. Thank you for your interactivity. And I can't wait to see some of the things that you create. If you have anything that you are creating or any questions you want to ask, my email address is in the chat there. So should you need me, esmcoots@glow.gov.uk, please feel free to email, and I can help out in any way. If you're struggling with getting things shared out, if you're struggling to actually get access to stuff, please feel free to drop me an email and I'll help in any way I can. The exact same way, Alison, is to do the same thing is within Canvas, or Notebook LM is the way to get it to do that. What it will also do is within Notebook LM, you can actually give it a topic. You're very welcome, Miss Love. Thanks, Gavin. Within Notebook LM, you can give it the document and it will create quiz questions based on that. You can also upload a document and take it to Canvas and say, using this document as a reference, create an interactive quiz that can export the answers to a Google form. So again, it's down to the way in which you prompt it, Alison. It's down to the question in which you ask. It's down to the approach that you take with it. If it's not doing something within a particular purpose, then it will take you 9 steps of the way. I think it has actually got a lot better. It will now start to create presentations. It will start to Yeah, ask it to export to Google Form. That's the big difference there. It might not necessarily create the form. It will create a slide deck and it will create a document. That is now a new feature that Gemini is getting. But I will say I've been using Gemini for about a year and it has went leaps and bounds in the past even 6 months. They're adding new features every day, every week. It feels like Google seem to do this drop every month. I get the feature drop in my phone where I get new features, and they seem to do the same with their web-based tools. So just yeah, keep giving it a go, ask the questions, and do the queries in that regard. But hopefully that helps. Let me know if there's any other issues. Please feel free to send me an email, and I'll jump on a call with you.